Hello and welcome to the hashtag Here to Hear Keeping It 100 podcast. My name is Damon Nell and I'll be serving as the host. I am the media guru for NAFCM. I'm joined by my co-host, DG Mon, the president of NAFCM. What's up, DG?
Hey, Damon, it's so good to see you. It's great to be with you in the glow of your guru aura.
Awesome. I'm so glad to be with you again. And as you know, we have a wonderful guest with us today, and that's none other than
Dude.
Kimberly Best, who's out of Brentwood, Tennessee. Kim is the owner of Best Conflict Solutions. She's the president of the Tennessee Association of Professional Mediators, and she is on the executive committee of the ABA Dispute Resolution Section. We have a super guest today, an all-star, and we're going to bring her in. Hello and welcome, Kim. How are you?
I'm great. I am feeling so fortunate to be here with you all.
We're blessed and fortunate to have you. I've just told them about how special and great you are. We just want to give you a moment to let them know a little bit about yourself.
Well, in addition to whatever you said about me, my former career was a trauma nurse, and I think it's interesting now I'm working in conflict because one was kind of trauma to the body, and I think the other is kind of trauma to the soul. It can be, right? And then my side job is mother to 5 grown children and grandmother to 4 little wild ones.
Wonderful. So you are indeed super in every sense of the word.
Never a dull moment.
Right. So we're so glad to have you, and we're going to get right into it. Today's topic is confidence in conflict. I love that topic. I love that subject and that theme. And so the first question is, how can we view conflict as normal? Because typically that word has a negative connotation. You think of harm, you think of resistance, you think of fighting. But how can we normalize that and just view it as normal?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. As long as we see conflict as something bad and that's not supposed to happen, we're going to be stuck before we even get started. So we are human and we are different, and we're going to see the world differently. And I think if we can see conflict as a sign that there's a problem to solve, a space where maybe we're stuck, and also as just an opportunity to grow, like something needs to change. So figuring out what that need is so we can find the change, those are the things that conflict tell us.
So in listening to you and thinking about it, from what you just said, I would say you would need flexibility, number one, and also maturation. Because I oftentimes find when people have opposing opinions or disagree, that it's harsh and it's really a challenge for some people when they don't have the maturity to just accept and appreciate and allow someone to have a different opinion, and they sometimes aren't really receptive of it, which you can receive it even if you disagree. Just listen and be able to hear people out. But like you said, it does take that flexibility to be willing to change and to do something different in order to, I guess, fix things when they are out of place. But I do think it is healthy. Do you have any examples of an example with conflict where it was healthy?
I think it always ultimately is healthy. I think the biggest problem with conflict is that we haven't learned how to do it well. And so it's not that we disagree, it's that we don't have the tools. Most people really don't have the tools. And I often say, if you think back to what happened to you when you were little and you were the source of the conflict, that often drives how we handle conflict. So in thinking about this conversation that we're having today and thinking about this, it really made me think more about all the things that we've learned about conflict in our own personal lives, all the places that told us that it's a matter of right and wrong, that wrong has so much shame with it. From the time we're in school, you can't be wrong. I mean, all these, I call them unintentional consequences of the systems that we have that don't allow us, haven't taught us how to bring a better version of ourselves to us disagreeing. Because if you think about it, Damon, what difference does it make if you have a different opinion than I do? But it feels like it makes a huge difference. If you disagree with me, that's because you're you. It's not the life-threatening sort of response that we have to it.
And it's funny, you mentioned the word disagree, because I always tell people, just because we disagree doesn't mean we dislike each other. Just because we disagree doesn't mean we disrespect each other. And disagreeing doesn't mean that we have disregard. It just means we do not agree. And in many cases, I try to help people when they do have an opposing opinion to maybe not lead with I disagree, because what I find is people automatically assume a defensive posture, and I give them other phrases that they can utilize that can kind of help to disarm the person, and so they won't assume that defensive posture. But yes, differences are needed. That's what makes the world go around. I truly believe that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim.
No, I've just always I've really for a very long time, this visual in my head that we're all puzzle pieces. And if we can figure out how to put that together, it would be an incredible picture, right? Like, because we're supposed to be different. And how could we not be? We have different biologies, we have completely different socially learned skills or lack of skills. I mean, just there's no way we could be alike.
Love that analogy. Yeah.
Kim, I wanted to build on, you talked about unintended consequences of the system. How did you come to the conclusion that they're unintended? That systems generally perpetuate itself because those that are benefiting from the design are benefiting from it. In a country, this country and Canada as well, multiple types of cultures exist and always have. And if you look at any of the research of just the United States, there were 9 very distinctive cultures, not including all the distinctive indigenous cultures. So therefore, we were always coming together as people who had different perspectives, different experiences, different rights and different wrongs. Yet the system puts such shame into, if we admit we failed, put such shame into we made a mistake or we were wrong. So why do you think the system is that way, and what hope do we have to massage some of that?
Well, I've got to say, that's such a complex question. The first word that came into my mind was religion. And I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole or not, but I was raised Catholic, and if you did wrong, you didn't just sin, you were a sinner. Now, how that was designed and why, I don't know. I wasn't there for the inception of it. But I know this. The same with the schools and being right and wrong, the things we learn on how to handle conflict, those things. Most teachers, most of us are doing what we were taught. So maybe in the beginning, I'm sure, the systems in school are set up to control the children, to keep them in line so that they can learn or whatever. So I don't know that anybody said we're going to create a system where no one learns how to deal with conflict. What they likely said, I could picture a world where what they said is, we're going to create a system where these people don't have voice. And because of that, we haven't learned how to handle conflict.
So in essence, the way to avoid the conflict is to suppress, I guess, the opposing voice and then magnify the voice that's in power, in essence.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that too stems from the thing that most of us share, and that is a fear of conflict. I know a lot of mediators who want to keep control on the mediation and want people not to have emotions because we fear what will happen if we see a whole human being. And that's kind of tied into what we've learned about conflict and understanding ourselves, as you mentioned before, Damon, but it's also tied into recognizing that as human beings, we are more than just our best moments, and we're more than just our worst moments. We are complex. We have triggers. Sometimes we think through things well, and sometimes we react. I call it the difference between reacting and responding. And all of these things are just part of being human, you know?
Exactly, exactly. Okay, good. So you had mentioned a phrase, and I wanted to kind of delve into that and talk about it. Just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean I'm against you. It means I'm me. Let's unpack that. Let's unpack that.
Let's unpack that. So I actually love that, because I know that when people disagree and, you know, I disagree with you, it immediately feels like an attack. And I think one of the things we have to do conflict better is understand the biology of conflict. So why is it that it's different for you? You see things different than I do. It's because you're you. I have clients very often say, well, I would never have done that. And I'm like, you are right. You would never have done that unless you were them. If you were them, you would have done that. So we have, again, different biologies. We have different capacities for how we react and respond to things based on those biologies. And then throw in every single experience we've had as a human being that forms and shapes us. Is never the same as the other person. So if we just recognize right away that that person's not against us, but indeed what they're doing is telling us a little bit about who they are, you know, then we have a starting point. But it goes back to the maturity you talked about, that I have to recognize that, oh, wait, I'm triggered because you disagreed with me. Okay, pause that for a moment and tell myself, and the reason I did that catchphrase, just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean I'm against you, is because I think it's easy to remember and an easy reset to actually have a conversation.
Awesome, awesome. And you mentioned something that is so profound about when people say, you know, I wouldn't have done that. And like you said, of course you wouldn't, because it's not you. One thing I always share with people when I facilitate communication workshops is I feel as though I found a silver bullet to proper and good communication, which is the interpretation of communication. And what it is, as you're stating, we process people's information, their thoughts and ideas through our own, like you were saying, experiences, opinions, beliefs. But if we're able to look at the individual, learn about them, you know their personality, know their belief systems, and then when they speak, knowing that they're speaking from those standpoints, it helps us to interpret them better. And like you say, you know exactly where they're coming from, as opposed to you just filtering what they're saying through you and your experiences and your perspective. But I think that's very critical.
That's exactly right. Somehow we have this, we've not developed often enough recognition that we are not another person, you know, a differentiation somehow. I was pondering that. I mean, I think I'll look into that, because I think that's very interesting, that our tendency is to not have the little bit of space that's required between a you and a me.
Definitely.
In those moments, yeah.
True. Do you have anything else to chime in, DG?
Nothing other than I love thinking of that space between you and me, because that's the space that we have the possibility of finding connection, finding that those tissues, those values that we share, that allows us to expand the potential of you and the potential of me. So I'm just sitting here with that visual when Kim said, we need to allow that space. Sometimes we don't, between the you and the me. So thank you, Kim, for planting that seed.
I'm telling you, what you said to follow up on that is, I mean, I have goosebumps and tears in my eyes. Like that is beautiful. And I think that's what that space would serve. So yeah, that is a beautiful visual.
So you mentioned earlier having some tools to be able to deal with conflict. What are those tools we can utilize to manage conflict more effectively?
How many hours do you have?
Because we have a short space to do it, so
A
give the
short
condensed
space. I
version.
have 2 minutes to tell you. You know, the interesting thing about the tools in the toolbox, we learn just a toolbox full of stuff as mediators, and we keep learning more, you know. And I guess that you mentioned flexibility earlier. I think, you know, sometimes something works and then it doesn't another time. Or by works, I mean, you know, speaks to the other person, helps build connection, helps us understand. But I think the most important thing, number one, is to see what you're doing in the conflict. You know, we really, really see what the other person is doing, because we're really focused on them, and sometimes we fail to even recognize our own part in the conflict. To do that, we have to slow it down a little bit. You know, things can escalate really fast, but taking a pause and being deliberate and being intentional. The other thing that I think is a big lesson that someone taught me decades ago, most of the time, not most of the time, but very often in conflict, we're going for the who's right and who's wrong. And as a mediator, I know there's more than one truth, right? We're looking for the truth. And we all know our perceptions make things different. And, you know, the story we say about what happened 2 years ago morphs in our own mind so that when we're retelling it, it gets further and further from what it actually looked like, all that kind of stuff. But the thing that I learned that I absolutely loved, I have a very wise girlfriend, and she had recently got married. And she said, when I argue with my husband, I always win because I'm better at words. I'm quicker minded. She's so brilliant. You know, I always win. And then one day I realized that for me to win, I had to make him lose. And I wanted to care enough. She said, love enough. I wanted to love him enough that I didn't make him lose. And that fits with right, wrong too. For me to be right, I have to make you wrong. And I want to care enough about you that I don't have to make you wrong. Now, ironically, what most people really respond to is having their truth acknowledged as their truth, even if it doesn't match up with my truth, you know? So we call that holding two truths or more. But yeah, so I think eliminating the right wrong thing is really important. And I could go on and on and on, but I'll pause with those.
I'd love to have a follow-up and go on and on. The truth is a very Western way. We must seek the truth. And what that ends up putting us in is these battles, because we're not really battling about the facts. We can all agree on the facts. It's the truth we disagree on, and the truth is how we're interpreting and experiencing those facts. What I'm hearing you say is we need to also consider a more Eastern model where we are seeking the shared values that we have. So in that argument where I was upset, what value did that challenge for me? And is that what you intended to do? And when we do that, then we don't have a winner or a loser. Both truths can be both truths. What we have then is that deeper conversation. I hear you calling us to that space between the you and me, where we're really talking about, so what was the value I stepped on? And let's talk about that. And I just think it would be great to have a long conversation with you, because it is something that pauses us to look at our particular culture and systems and saying maybe they need to be massaged a little bit. Just doing a little reflection here as I'm listening.
I mean, for sure, I think it goes back to learning how conflict works and observing how we do it. It's interesting you talk about values. I use the word needs. Sometimes it's values and needs, they're two different things, but sometimes it's, yeah. And I use the phrase stepping on toes to replace conflict because we're going to step on each other's toes. We just are, right? That's just normal. But I also use a tool for my clients that I think you might like, DG. It's called VIA Character, viacharacter.org. And it's this free, very simple and fun little quiz thing that's scientifically, validated. And it is all about, well, it lists 24 values and it ranks yours in order of what's important to you. So things like love of learning, beauty, truth, love. My number one is love of learning. Big surprise. Gigi laughs. And I think, I don't know if respect is on there, but the thing is we all have these 24 values, but we all have a different sense of important. Justice and fairness are two of them. Those are two different things. They're two different values. And so one of the reasons I use it is I say that the world is just so happy to tell us what we do that's wrong. Looking at our values, this is who I am. Like, this is the stuff I believe in that helps me make my decisions. And from our values, knowing what they are, I believe that we can use those to bring our best self into things like conflict, right? As well as understanding that, yeah, you keep saying this isn't fair. And I'm like, I think it's fine. Well, fairness is something you really value. And if I know that, and you can say that to me, if you know that about you, then we have a different conversation too.
Awesome. Well, great resource and great topics to end with there. This time always goes by so fast, but we truly appreciate you, Kim Best, for being with us, hanging out with us, and sharing your insight with our audience. Is there one last thing you want to share, one last tidbit, or do you want to conclude?
Yeah, I just want to say there is no way y'all enjoyed it as much as I did. I mean, I just think you guys are the best, and it's an honor to be here with you.
Right. Nah, you are literally the best.
I mean, I got the name.
Yeah, you got the name. So, but yeah,
Thank
any
you.
final words, DG? Thank you.
The honor is all ours, Kim. You help us live out at NAFCM. I am because we are because I am, and you've made such a difference to who NAFCM is. So thank you, Kim.
Gonna make me cry.
Yes, well, we'll definitely be having another conversation with you, Kim. Like I said, we appreciate you being here, and we appreciate everyone who's tuned in to hashtag Here to Here, Keeping It 100 podcast. We hope to see you guys soon. Spread the word so that we can get more views and more people involved. And we thank you for checking us out. Take care.